Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. India hits back after Trudeau admits Canada had no hard evidentiary proof linking India to Nichar killing, says responsibility for damage to India-Canada relations lies with Prime Minister Trudeau. India's President Draupadi Murmu hold bilateral talks with her Mauritanian counterpart. Both the countries signed 4 MOUs in plans for Malawi for the last leg of a 3-Africa nation tour. European Union leaders to begin 2-day meeting in Brussels, Ukraine and West Asia conflict to top the agenda. US President Joe Biden to visit Germany to hold talks with his counterparts during his maiden visit as the US President. And in Nigeria, around 150 people killed, dozens injured as fuel tanker exploded in northern state of Jigawa. Now to begin with the big news that we are tracking at DD India Live right now, in a massive embarrassment for Canada, the country's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the early hours of Thursday morning acknowledged before a commission of inquiry that he had not provided India with concrete proof regarding the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nichar on Canadian soil. Responding to which, the India's Ministry of External Affairs said what it has heard only confirms New Delhi's consistent stand that Canada has presented us no evidence in support of the serious allegations Canada chose to level against India and the Indian diplomats. In the statement, Ministry of External Affairs said, and I quote, "What we have heard today only confirms what we've been saying consistently all along. Canada has presented us no evidence whatsoever in support of the serious allegations that it has chosen to level against India and the Indian diplomats. The responsibility for the damage that this cavalier behavior has caused to India-Canada relations lies with Prime Minister Trudeau alone." Unquote. Moving on, India's President Draupadi Murmu emplane for Malawi, which is the last leg of a 3-nation visit. During the visit to Malawi, the President is scheduled to hold bilateral meetings with the state heads and will also interact with key trade and industry leaders along with the Indian diaspora. She will also visit places of cultural and historical significance. The visit to 3 African nations by the Indian President comes a year after the African Union was made a permanent member of G20 group during India's presidency. Her visit will conclude on the 19th of October. And during her 3-day stay in Malawi, President Murmu will also pay her respects at Sri Radhakrishna Temple in the capital. This temple has been a prominent center of religious, cultural and social activities for the Indian community. The temple also showcases a mini India.
We have many years of relationship between India and Malawi, and by this visit it will cement more heavily that these 2 countries come together, and we are always grateful to India for the support and donations and grants given to us for the local people.
Malawi is a warm heart of Africa and India is in our heart.
So we are so excited to see our President of India here in Malawi. So we hope that we will have more business relations happen India between Malawi.
We have more than 900 community members in Lilongwe, and we celebrate each and every religious function in Lilongwe. And we feel very proud about Lilongwe city because all the community works in together.
We are also very thankful to the Malawi government. Having settled here in Malawi, they allowed us to carry on with our culture, which we've managed to do, and so they kept that environment free and for everyone to practice what we want.
I've been in Malawi past 22 years. We are very happy to have our president, and it is definitely going to boost up our friendship relations between India and Malawi.
India's President Draupadi Murmu successfully concluded her Mauritania visit, highlighting the potential for India-Mauritania cooperation. During her visit, President held bilateral talks with her counterpart and other leaders as well. India and Mauritania also exchanged several agreements with an aim to boost further ties.
India's President Draupadi Murmu successfully concluded her Mauritania visit, a second leg of her three African nation visit. This was the first ever visit by an Indian president to the northwestern African nation. On her arrival at Nouakchott-Oumtounsy International Airport, President Draupadi Murmu was received and greeted by President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, and was accorded a ceremonial welcome. Later in the day, President met her counterpart Ghazouani at the Presidential Palace for bilateral talks. President also attended a delegation-level meeting followed by exchange of 4 MOUs. Agreement to promote bilateral relations in various fields of common interest, MOU to facilitate cooperation in mutually beneficial areas of activity, agreement for exemption of visa requirements for diplomatic and official service passport holders, agreement to promote cultural exchange programs. Earlier on Wednesday, President Murmu also interacted with Indian diaspora at a community event where she emphasized on India's goal of becoming a development nation by 2047 and also acknowledged the crucial role of Indian diaspora in achieving this vision.
हम वर्ष 2047 तक भारत को एक विकसित भारत बनाने के अपने लक्ष्य की ओर तेजी से बढ़ रहे हैं और हमारा प्रवासी परिवार इस प्रक्रिया में एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण कारक है.
Later, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Cooperation and Mauritanians Abroad of Mauritania, Mohamed Salim Ould Merzouk, called on President Murmu. Mauritania has immense natural resources that are important for India's growing industry. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the celebration of International Abhidham Divas and the recognition of Pali as a classical language in New Delhi. The International Abhidham Divas celebration, organized by the Government of India and International Buddhist Confederation, will see participation of academicians and monks from 14 countries and a significant number of young experts on Buddha Dham from various universities across India. Abhidham Divas commemorates the descent of Lord Buddha from the celestial realm after teaching Abhidham. The recent recognition of Pali as a classical language, along with 4 other languages, enhances the significance of this year's Abhidham Divas celebrations as Lord Buddha's teachings on Abhidham, which are originally available in Pali language. Now, Naib Singh Saini will be sworn in as the Chief Minister of the Northern Indian state of Haryana on Thursday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India's Home Minister Amit Shah and party's top leadership, among others, will be present at the oath-taking ceremony, which is scheduled to begin at around 11 a.m. according to Indian Standard Time. Naib Singh Saini staked claim to form the next government after he was unanimously elected as the leader of the BJP legislature party on Wednesday. Elaborate security arrangements are in place in Panchkula for the same. In the 5th of October Haryana polls, the BJP secured an unprecedented third term in the state, winning 48 seats in the 90-member assembly. Niti Aayog is all set to host the 2-day second International Methanol Seminar and Expo 2024 from Thursday onwards in New Delhi. Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Saraswat addressed a curtain-raiser press briefing on the upcoming seminar. In the briefing, Saraswat highlighted the importance of using methanol as a better alternative to conventional fuels.
अच्छी बात है कि मिथेनॉल जो है क्लाइमेट के कंट्रोल के लिए बहुत अच्छा है. क्यों अच्छा है मैंने कैसे बताया, अगर कंपेयर टू डीजल, अगर मैं डीजल की एक गाड़ी चलाता हूँ और M100 की गाड़ी चलाता हूँ तो आप सोच लीजिए आपको कम से कम नहीं तो 50% रिडक्शन इन एमिशंस, एंड पर्टिकुलरली वो एमिशन जो कि हमारे लिए डेट्रीमेंटल है. जैसे दिल्ली शहर में हम सोचते हैं पार्टिकुलेट मैटर हमको बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट करता है, no particulate matter, no sulfur, no NOx, केवल कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड मिलेगा.
The curtain raiser for the 7th session of the International Solar Alliance Assembly was hosted on Wednesday in New Delhi. Leaders from 120 member countries are all set to attend the 7th session of the International Solar Alliance Assembly in New Delhi from the 3rd till the 6th of November. TD India correspondent Taposh Bhattacharya has more.
India will host the 7th session of the International Solar Alliance Assembly, a key moment in the global drive force towards a solar-powered future. From November 3rd to 6th, leaders from 120 countries, partner organizations and the private sector will convene at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi to chart a course towards a sustainable solar-powered future.
Leaders from across the world will convert during the forthcoming 7th Assembly of ISA to promote the widespread adoption of the solar power.
India's Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Prasar Joshi, highlighted ISA's evolution into a global platform and commended their remarkable progress in adopting solar energy.
I take this opportunity to call upon ISA members, signatories and prospective countries to unite on the threefold agenda at the upcoming assembly. 1. Empowering the member countries to adopt the solar energy as the energy source of choice. Make energy access universal by supporting the solar entrepreneurs to scale up the local solutions. Mobilize the finance to speed up the solar deployment.
This year's assembly will bring together ministers, missions and key stakeholders to discuss how solar energy can improve energy access, boost security and accelerate the energy transition, especially in regions with limited power.
We believe that we harmonize and aggregate the demand for solar finance, for solar technologies, and therefore create the demand for research and development. We also enable the capacity that is needed in various countries to adopt solar energy. We have aggregated projects which we are preparing and enabling for about 9.5 gigawatts.
With India and France leading the way, the Assembly will focus on strategies to increase solar deployment across the world. It's time to unlock the power of the sun, shaping a brighter tomorrow for everyone. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
Now, heavy rainfall hit South Indian state of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh coast as a depression over the Bay of Bengal is moving towards this coast. It is likely to move west-northwestwards and cross Tamil Nadu, South Andhra Pradesh coasts today, weakening into a low-pressure area by the 19th of October. Tamil Nadu and Puducherry will experience light to moderate rainfall, with some areas expected to see heavy to extremely heavy showers. In Bengaluru, schools have been closed as a precautionary measure due to the heavy rains which are expected. And now to get us the latest, I'm joined by DD India correspondent from Tamil Nadu, Anbarsan. Good morning, Anbarsan. What is the current situation regarding the weather prediction there in Tamil Nadu right now?
As IMD is predicted, nearly the depression is to reach the coastal between Nellore and Chennai right now. And the heavy downpour on particularly the southern part of the Andhra Pradesh, particularly Nellore region. And also we can see that the IMD has given a red alert to Chennai and neighboring district yesterday. And after now they changed into orange alert. And so that the heavy rainfall is, right now is not yet registered in Chennai and neighboring district. But we can see that light and moderate rain has been registered in...
All right. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Anbarsan, for giving us the latest on the current situation there in Tamil Nadu. Moving on now let's talk about other stories which are making news across the country. Before that, we'll quickly take a short break and come back to you, but still to come on the other side. US President Joe Biden announces $425 million new military aid package for Ukraine. UN Security Council urges Israel to increase flow of aid into Gaza. And tensions seem to simmer between China and Japan after repeated altercations with the Philippines over disputed waters in the South China Sea.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now, NATO Chief Mark Rutte revealed on Wednesday that he is fully aware of Ukraine's victory plan recently presented by President Volodymyr Zelensky and is in communication with the NATO members regarding the next steps. Mark Rutte reaffirmed that Ukraine's path to NATO membership, a core demand of Zelensky, is irreversible. However, the victory plan encompasses more than just the membership, and Rutte is working with alliance members to assess its broader scope. While NATO allies have pledged that Ukraine will eventually join the alliance, they have also made it clear that Kyiv cannot be admitted while still at war, and no timeline for the membership has been set.
The victory plan we discussed. We are also discussing it with allies. It will no doubt also be on the table this week when, of course, we have on Thursday the meeting between Ukraine and NATO on Thursday night with the defense ministers. As you know, at the NATO summit, allies agreed that Ukraine's path to membership is irreversible. And Ukraine is closer to NATO than ever before.
The European Union held its first summit with the Gulf states on Wednesday. That is a part of European Union diplomatic courting of less familiar friends as it seeks new economic allies and enlist international support to isolate Russia. The summit is part of the European Union's diplomatic push for a far-flung friends as it enlists international support to isolate Russia. And European Union partnership with Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates would cover trade and investment, renewable energy, regional security and citizen issues such as visas. In a joint statement at the end of the summit, the two sides said they would revive talks launched 35 years ago on a free trade agreement but suspended in 2008. They will also hold biennial summits, the next in Saudi Arabia in the year 2026.
The summit reconfirmed the need to reinforce our existing cooperation on trade and investment between the two regions. We agreed to move ahead with negotiations on a free trade agreement, and we should pursue all options to reinforce our economic cooperation and trade relations with all partners.
What's really important, what's been important in that meeting, that we have seen that all the leaders are seeing eye to eye on many of those topics and sharing the commitment for a better future in terms of relationship for GCC and the EU.
Now, the European Union leaders are meeting in Brussels on the 17th and the 18th of October to discuss Ukraine, the crisis in the West Asia, migration efforts to boost the European Union's competitiveness. The European Union leaders will be discussing Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine in all its dimensions, including developments on the front line and continued comprehensive support for Ukraine. Discussion on the progress on the use of extraordinary revenue from Russia's frozen assets to benefit Ukraine is also on the agenda. Migration is set to dominate a summit of European Union leaders as calls for outsourcing asylum procedures and speedier deportations grow increasingly louder, despite stern warnings from the NGOs that the approach would endanger fundamental rights. European Union leaders also agreed on the need for a new competitiveness deal and outlined some means to achieve it. In this context, leaders will take stock of progress on enhancing European Union's competitiveness. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be presenting his victory plan for resolving the war with Russia at the summit of European Union leaders in Brussels on Thursday. Zelensky unveiled that much-anticipated plan in Ukraine's parliament on Wednesday as Moscow's forces advance in the east and a bleak winter of power cut looms. He informed the lawmakers that the plan contained 5 main points that were in the hands of his allies, including an unconditional invite to join NATO and weapons support. In return, he offered a Western role in developing Ukraine's natural mineral resources and said Ukrainian troops could enhance the security of NATO and replace some of the US forces in Europe. Now, the US has announced another package of military aid to Ukraine. The new $425 million military aid package was announced by the US President for the Ukrainian armed forces following talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The package includes air defense capability, air-to-ground munitions, armored vehicles and critical munitions. Following the talk, Zelensky expressed his gratitude to President Biden, both U.S. political parties and the American people for the new package. Zelensky also updated Biden on his new victory plan. Both the leaders instructed their teams to engage in further consultations on next steps. United States President Joe Biden will depart for a trip to Germany after rescheduling a visit last week because of Hurricane Milton. During the 2-day visit, the U.S. President will hold talks with German leadership. According to the White House, the U.S. President will also meet with the leaders of key NATO allies, Britain, Germany and France. The meeting will be held on Friday with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, a day that U.S. demanded Israel to improve humanitarian conditions in Gaza or risk military aid in a letter that got leaked, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke to Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The two leaders discussed Israel's operations in Lebanon and the humanitarian situation in Gaza. As per a statement issued thereafter, Secretary Austin encouraged the government of Israel to continue taking steps to address the dire humanitarian situation, noting the recent action by Israel to increase the amount of humanitarian assistance entering into Gaza. Austin and Gallant also discussed an advanced U.S. anti-missile system that Washington has deployed to bolster Israel's air defenses. And on the second day of polio vaccination in Gaza, WHO and UNICEF vaccinated over 64,000 children. So far, the authorities have vaccinated around 100,000 children. WHO Director General also called on Israel to allow WHO's access to the north. Amid conflict, polio has re-emerged in besieged Gaza, where the humanitarian crisis has left most medical facilities and the sewage system in ruins.
Now to Gaza, where WHO and our partners began the second round of our polio vaccination campaign on Monday, targeting more than 500,000 children. A minimum of 2 doses of vaccine are needed to interrupt polio virus transmission. This will only be achieved if at least 90% of all eligible children are vaccinated in all communities and neighborhoods.
Members of the United Nations Security Council met on Wednesday to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and every member called on Israel to consistently allow aid into northern Gaza. Diplomats agreed that the lack of sufficient aid into Gaza needed to be addressed urgently. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, told its ally, Israel, it must take steps in the next month to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or face potential restrictions on U.S. military aid.
We made this clear to Israel, just as we've made clear to the Israeli government at the highest levels that it must do more to address the intolerable and catastrophic humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Food and supplies must be surged into Gaza immediately, and there must be humanitarian pauses across Gaza to allow for vaccinations and the delivery and distribution of humanitarian aid. A quote-unquote policy of starvation in northern Gaza would be horrific and unacceptable and would have implications under international law and U.S. law.
Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon told the Council that the issue in Gaza was not a lack of aid, saying more than 1 million tons had been delivered during the past 1 year. He accused Hamas of hijacking the humanitarian assistance.
The real issue is Hamas. This terrorist organization has hijacked the aid, seizing it for their own purposes. They steal, they store, and even sell the aid that is intended for Gaza's civilians, turning humanitarian relief into a profit machine. Instead of feeding the hungry or caring for the sick, Hamas uses the supplies to feed their terror machine. Hamas's exploitation of international goodwill is not new, but the scale of their corruption and violence against their own people is staggering.
Meanwhile, Britain and France have called an urgent meeting at the United Nations Security Council to discuss the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that Britain was looking at sanctioning Israeli Finance Minister and National Security Minister over comments they had made about the conflict. Starmer and leader of the opposition Conservative Party, Rishi Sunak, clashed over policy towards China and issues of national security. Starmer denied halting a scheme established by the previous government that would help them to protect the UK from interference from foreign states.
We are looking at that because they're obviously abhorrent comments, as he rightly says, along with other really concerning activity in the West Bank, but also across the region. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire. The death toll has surpassed 42,000, and access to basic services is becoming much harder. And Israel must take all possible steps to avoid civilian casualties, to allow aid into Gaza in much greater volume, and provide the UN and humanitarian partners the ability to operate effectively. Mr. Speaker, along with France, the UK will convene an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to address this.
Meanwhile, Israeli airstrike destroyed Lebanese municipal headquarters in the biggest attack on an official Lebanese state building since the Israeli air campaign began. The mayor of a major town in South Lebanon was among 16 people killed in the strike. Lebanese officials denounced the incident that also wounded over 50 people in Nabatea. Besides, the UN mission in Lebanon, UNIFIL, said 2 of their cameras were destroyed and the tower was damaged in the strike. There were no immediate comment from the Israeli military on the UNIFIL statement, on which Austin reinforced the importance of taking all necessary measures to ensure the safety and security of UNIFIL forces and the Lebanese armed forces. Now, Syria is facing an influx of people fleeing the escalating conflict in Lebanon. An estimated 260,000 people have crossed into Syria from Lebanon so far. The United Nations World Food Programme has expressed deep concerns about worsening food security situation. Over half of the Syrian population is already facing food insecurity, with approximately 3 million people in the grip of severe hunger conditions. The UN projects that the number of newly displaced people requiring assistance in Syria could reach up to 500,000. To meet this demand, WFP urgently required $54.4 million to cover 6 months of emergency assistance. The US military has struck Houthi weapon storage facilities within Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. A US defense official said that US Central Command forces conducted multiple airstrikes on numerous Iran-backed Houthi weapon storage facilities within the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. The defense official said the weapons were used to target military and civilian vessels navigating international waters throughout the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. North Korea has designated South Korea a hostile state, confirming that its National Assembly had amended the country's constitution in line with their leaders' vow to drop unification as a national goal. The North's KCNA news agency cited a defense ministry spokesperson as saying the country would take further steps to permanently fortify the close southern border. In the month of January, Kim called for a constitutional amendment to erase unification as a goal in its ties with the South, accusing Seoul of colluding with the United States to seek the collapse of its communist regime and a clear defining of its territory. South Korea has said its policy was to continue to pursue national unification but respond with force if North Korea mounts any aggression. Now, after repeated altercations with the Philippines over disputed waters in the South China Sea, now tension seems to escalate between China and Japan. China's Coast Guard said a Japanese fishing vessel illegally entered China's territorial waters around Diao Islands on the 15th and 16th of October and was warned to leave. Japan rejected China's claims to the islands, and over the past few months, the two countries have had a number of confrontations in the area. Back in the month of June, Japan lodged a protest against Beijing after it said Chinese vessels carrying what appeared to be cannons had entered the territorial waters in the East China Sea surrounding the disputed islands, which Tokyo calls the Senkaku and Beijing calls the Diao. Weeks later, Japan lodged another protest after one of China's naval survey vessel that entered Japanese waters. An uptick in Chinese military activity near Japan and around Taiwan in recent years has stoked concerns in Tokyo. A fuel tanker overturned late on Tuesday in Nigeria's northern state of Jigawa after the driver lost control of the vehicle, spilling petrol that exploded and killed at least 147 people. The accident is one of the worst in recent times in Africa's most populous nation, which is battling with widespread security threats and a cost of living crisis. Time to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Today's episode was all about unique ideas that help us adapt to this new world where so much around us is changing.
We are forming communities to practice regenerative farming and learn how to control these problems naturally.
We have invested in a new battery park to stabilize it, and that makes it also easier for us to phase in renewables like wind and sun.
We're developing some AI tools which use imagery in our grow rooms. They can monitor them on a 24-hour basis, and they help us understand the prime time for picking so that we harvest those mushrooms at the perfect time of ripeness.
I have been using Ravichandran's vermicompost and have had good yields. Now I have used it for this 2-acre maize field. I'm planning to use it continuously. So far, the yield is good and the crops are doing well.
Welcome back after that short break. Now, getting back to our top story that we are tracking at DD India News Hour right now, where in a massive embarrassment for Canada, the country's Prime Minister Trudeau, in the early hours of Thursday morning, acknowledged before a commission of inquiry that he had not provided India with concrete proof regarding the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil. And responding to which, the India's Ministry of External Affairs said it has heard only confirms and New Delhi's consistent stand that Canada has presented as no evidence in support of the serious allegations Canada chose to level against India and the Indian diplomats. And to discuss more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent Meghna Dev. Good morning, Meghna. Now, this late-night statement by Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson saying that Justin Trudeau's statement is just a confirmation to what India has been reiterating and there is no evidence lying with Canada. Tell us more about this recent development that you're tracking right now, Meghna, for us.
Deepika, as we see that the time and again, India has been saying that not even a shred of evidence has been shared with India. After multiple times, India asking for evidence, assertions being made, no evidence has been provided. And Prime Minister Trudeau's, in a sense, it is that they have exposed themselves. And it's a massive embarrassment for Canada at the moment, where they have said that they have put these allegations, with some intelligence input, not when they had some evidence. So that clearly, states that how, Canada has been working with anti-India agenda, putting out concocted stories, putting out concocted allegations, preposterous allegations against senior Indian diplomats and the High Commissioner of India to Canada. So that definitely paints a picture that how desperate Canada was at that time and is at the moment to malign India's image, to smear India for narrow political gains, is what also the statement read on Monday, when the Ministry of External Affairs actually, in a very sharp response, put out a statement stating that how Canada has been constantly working with people with anti-India agenda, who are separatists, extremists and terrorists, who have been carrying out anti-India activities on Canadian soil, but the Canadian government is paying no heed and taking no action against them. Our high commissioners, our Indian diplomats, our Indian community leaders in Canada are constantly getting death threats, but nothing has happened as of now. But what also Prime Minister Trudeau has said, that now he says that now these people, Indian diplomats had been taking information about these Khalistanis, these extremists, separatists and terrorists, and providing that to the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. So all of that is now sounding very concocted and absurd when, they are involving Indian diplomats, they are involving Indian High Commissioner. So that definitely paints a picture of how desperate the situation is there, how politically aligned this whole story is. And when Canada has exposed, the Canadian government has exposed themselves, that clearly states that, what they have said, what they have put out, what they have said, and what kind of allegations they have been making against Indian diplomats stands as baseless as it was earlier.
Politically aligned and diplomatically completely unaligned, Meghna. Where do we see Canada with this recent statement that talks volume also about the way they are handling their diplomatic ties?
Well, India-Canada ties, for that matter, I do not see it would go any worse where it is at the moment. We definitely do see that India has put out a statement last night, which is very unusual for India to put out a statement around 1 a.m. In the night, wherein they have said that the situation wherein India and Canada relationships stand at the moment is only because of Prime Minister Trudeau. The responsibility of this damage is with Prime Minister Trudeau alone. So that definitely shows that how Prime Minister Trudeau has been time and again trying to malign India's image, which India has time and again tried to, respond, but this time it has reacted so strongly because it was not only the question of these allegations, but it was a question of allegations that are leveled against senior diplomats, leveled against India, and how politically motivated agendas can are smearing India's image, globally, of that it is carrying out such kind of murders on foreign soil is definitely something very, it is something very unusually, a very unusual allegation that, that has been ever put against India. So what we definitely see here, the relationship has seen such a low that it will definitely take a long time to get back to normal. The ties will definitely take a very, very long time to get back to normal. What we see is that Prime Minister Trudeau, not only today, but not only in the recent few days, but from last year itself, He has been time and again targeting India. Not only that, in 2018 during his India visit, he meets such people who are driving anti-India agenda, where India has been time and again asking Canada to, for extradition of some people who are wanted in different cases here in India, but Canada pays no heed. So in different matters, time and again, Canada has been being standing with people who are driving anti-India agenda, and this is just another example of how how Canada has caused embarrassment to themselves.
All right, and as the MES also said that the responsibility lies with Justin Trudeau. Thank you so much, Meghna, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on the latest developing situation. Moving on to the US now, US Vice President Kamala Harris has been interviewed on Fox News for the first time, telling the network that her presidency will be different to Joe Biden's. Pushed on how she can pitch herself as the change candidate while part of the sitting government, Kamala Harris diverted to question her opponent Donald Trump's fitness for office. In the fiery exchange, the vice president was asked about an array of key election issues, including illegal border crossings and gender reassignment surgery for the US prisoners. Earlier, Trump also appeared on Fox at an event with an all-female audience. He described himself as the father of IVF that Harris said was quite bizarre. Now, Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris made a direct appeal on Wednesday to Republican voters in this year's U.S. presidential election as she highlighted Republican support for her campaign before appearing on conservative-leaning Fox News. Harris has emphasized her challenger, Donald Trump's attempt to overturn his election loss 4 years ago when he lost the White House to current President Joe Biden, saying the Democratic stakes of the election are high. Harris said Trump's actions violated the U.S. Constitution and if given the chance, he will violate it again.
I have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution 6 times, including as Vice President, as a United States Senator, and as the top law enforcement officer of the largest state in our country. And I have never wavered from upholding that oath. And this is a profound difference between Donald Trump and me. He, who violated the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and make no mistake, he who, if given the chance, will violate it again.
And to discuss more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent straight from California, Amritpal Singh. A very good morning to you, Amritpal, from India. Now, how's the election campaign shaping up there in California, Amrit? Amrit, there seems to be some audio issue. Can you please come again with the answer while we fix the audio issue for that particular answer that we were talking about California election and the US election in particular?
Deepika, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible right now. Can you please come again with the answer?
Okay. So you asked me how the campaigning is going on. The parties are campaigning here in California, though none of the candidates have been here in the past 2 weeks because, generally what happens in US politics is that the states are clearly divided. They're into blue states and red states. Red states are the states which traditionally vote for the Republicans. Blue states are the states which vote for the Democrats. California being a blue state, there are some swing states which vote either way, which could go, either way in different elections. So they, in a way, decide who the next president of the United States will be. So the candidates focus more on, those swing states because they are crucial to the outcome. California, it is understood by them that it will, go as a blue state because traditionally it's voted for them since I think the past 40 years. It's voted for the Democrats. Before that, it was a red state, but that's 40 years ago. So candidates tend to focus more there. But yes, of course, the parties is campaigning because, as you know, it's not just the presidential election. On the ballot is also the House. So basically, they are electing their new parliament as well, the House of Representatives. So, the House candidates are campaigning here. So they obviously belong to parties, so they're campaigning in a way for the president. So the parties really are contesting. Where I am in San Francisco, the city council also goes to vote. So on the ballot, you have the president, you have the House rep, and you have the city councillor. So, so in that sense, campaigning by parties on, but the candidates haven't come here in about 2 to 3 weeks in California.
Now, talking about the campaigning as well, Amrit, Kamala Harris in a recent interview said that her term is going to be different. What new or different is she proposing to woo the voters this time?
That was an interesting response by Kamala Harris in that really, sparring interview that Brett Baer took on Fox News. In fact, it was one of the toughest interviews that Kamala faced, and to be fair to her, she took the questions on the chin. I would see that as more as a rhetoric. Let me, tell you what exactly she said. When asked that how she would be different from Biden's administration, she said, and I quote her, "Let me be very clear, my presidency would not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency, and like every president that comes to office, I will bring my life experiences and fresh new ideas." So, when pressed further, both the anchor and Kamala were sparring. It was an explosive interview and a really, really tough one for Kamala, given that she chose to come on a conservative channel like Fox News, and the fireworks were supposed to fly there, and that's what's happened. That was standard fare. But, when pressed that how would you be different? And she said, well, I bring in my experiences, and I'm not a Washington person. I have not, my politics hasn't been around Washington, D.C. I have worked, I'm an outsider, really. So therefore, I bring in fresh ideas. Basically, she was trying to lay off the anti-incumbency of Joe Biden, saying that I bring in a fresh new energy and ideas if I come as president.
All right. Thank you so much, Amrit, for joining us and bringing us the latest on the US elections. Moving on, former One Direction star Liam Payne died aged 31 in Argentina after falling from the third floor of a hotel in Buenos Aires. In a statement, police said they discovered Payne's body after an emergency crew responded to a 911 call in the upscale neighborhood of Palermo. Payne had risen to global fame as part of the much-loved boy band created on the X Factor TV show in 2010, along with Harry Styles, Louis Tomlinson, Niall Horan and Zayn Malik. Earlier this month, Payne had attended the Argentina concert of his former One Direction bandmate Niall Horan. Time to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Deepika, and now it's time to get you the latest from the world of business. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose on Wednesday as Wall Street's three benchmark indices ended higher, weathering declines in mega-cap tech shares and thanks to small-cap gains and financial shares buoyed by strong earnings. The S&P 500 gained 0.47%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.28%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.79%. The European Central Bank is likely to lower interest rates again on Thursday. The first back-to-back rate cut in 13 years would mark a shift in focus for the Eurozone Central Bank from bringing down inflation to protecting economic growth that has lagged far behind that of the United States for 2 years straight. A quarter-point cut on Thursday would lower the rate that the ECB pays on banks' deposits to 3.25%, and money markets almost fully price in 3 further reductions through March 2025. On to sports now. First up from the world of cricket, India and New Zealand would hope to have some sort of action on day 2 after day 1. Which was their first test, was called off completely due to rain in Bengaluru. Persistent drizzle with its stop-and-start nature since morning, followed by proper rainfall, resulted into day 1 being called off. The match is a very crucial series for Rohit Sharma-led side as they now aim for a World Test Championship final berth. The men in blue are on a 6-match winning streak in Test cricket and had last registered a famous victory against Bangladesh in Kanpur. New Zealand, who had recently faced a whitewash in Sri Lanka, will be wary of an Indian team that is very strong in their own backyard. Bangladesh star all-rounder Shakib Al Hasan is all set for his last appearance in Test cricket in front of the home crowd as the venerable all-rounder was named in Bangladesh's squad for the first match against South Africa. Before the second and final test against India at Kanpur, Shakib had expressed his wish to play his final test at home against South Africa, provided the Bangladesh Cricket Board was able to ensure his safety. The series starting 21st of October in Mirpur is the first international cricket fixture in Bangladesh since a student-led revolution toppled the autocratic premier. Moving on to soccer now. At Nations League, Portugal sealed a berth in quarter-finals with a 0-0 draw away to Scotland on Tuesday. With this, the Portuguese remain top of Group A1 with 10 points, 3 ahead of Croatia, who drew 3-3 away to Poland, while the Scots are bottom on 1 point. The third-placed Poles have 4 points, with the top two in the group moving into the last 8 now. Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba says he's eager to return to football after having his doping ban reduced from 4 years to 18 months now. Pogba further said that he dreams of playing at the 2026 World Cup with Team France. The Court of Arbitration for Sport cut the 31-year-old ban earlier this month after he was provisionally suspended by Italy's National Anti-Doping Agency in September last year following a positive test for DHEA, which is a banned substance that boosts testosterone levels. Pogba, who appealed to CAS arguing his ingestion of DHEA was not intentional, will be eligible to return to play for Juventus in the month of March, and he said he was stronger, wiser and even willing to take a pay cut. Pogba last played for Juventus over a year ago in a 2-0 victory at Empoli. In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz, who's all set to play his next round at 6 Kings Slam, said he had a hard time accepting the news that his Spanish compatriot Rafael Nadal was planning on retiring next month and that he plans to soak in every moment when the two square off at the event on Thursday. Alcaraz won his opening match at the exhibition tournament in Riyadh on Wednesday, beating Denmark's Holger Rune by 6-4, 6-2 to reach the semi-final against Nadal. Talking about his match with Rafael Nadal, he further said that people in Spain are really going to enjoy this match.
It's going to be even tougher, you know, knowing that it is his last tournaments, his last events, his last matches. So I don't know if it is a privilege for me playing against him in his last month of his career, or it's gonna be really difficult. I mean, it's obviously that it is my idol. It was saying that when I hear the news that he's gonna retire, it was a really difficult moment for me to accept it. So I will try to enjoy every single second that I'm gonna share the court with him tomorrow. I will try to play my best because obviously I wanna win. And let's see tomorrow. I'm gonna expect a really good level for him. I think for people in Spain are gonna enjoy this match, and that's why I came here, just to put a show and make the people enjoy watching tennis.
The The United Nations General Assembly declared 17th of October as International Day of Eradication for Poverty. This day provides an opportunity to acknowledge the effort and struggle of people living in poverty and a chance for them to make their concerns heard and a moment to recognize that poor people are the first ones to fight against poverty. Poverty has multiple dimensions, some visible and other hidden, but all interlinked. Thus, as the world marks the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, the aim is ending social and institutional maltreatment, acting together for just, peaceful and inclusive societies. This year's theme highlights one of the hidden dimensions of poverty, the social and institutional maltreatment experienced by people living in poverty, and consider ways to act together on Sustainable Development Goal 16 to promote just, peaceful and inclusive societies. On this day in the year 1987, a meeting was called in Paris to honor the victims of extreme hunger, violence and poverty. They proclaimed that poverty is a violation of human rights and affirmed that need to come together to ensure that these rights are respected. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed in 1948. In the year 1992, the United Nations General Assembly officially recognized 17th of October as International Day for Eradication of Poverty. The Indian government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is continuously working towards eliminating poverty. According to a research paper by National Council of Applied Economic Research, poverty in India is estimated to decline from 21.2% in 2011-2012 to 8.5% during 2022-24. According to Niti Aayog, 24.82 crore people have come out of poverty in the last 9 years. The government is also running many schemes to end poverty and building a better society. The main schemes among these are Ujjwala Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Yojana, Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Mudra Loan Yojana. This socially important day calls upon all capable people of the society to work towards a just, peaceful and inclusive society by eliminating social and institutional abuses. Bureau Report, DD India. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching News Hour. Namaskar.